Hey guys, SoCal Val here. You are listening to the Hitting the Turnbuckle podcast.
Welcome everybody back to the Hitting the Turnbuckle podcast. It's yet another interview, our second one of 8 this month. Yes, 8. It's a busy month for us here, but we are talking to someone today who is one of the fastest rising stars in the British independent wrestling scene. He is the heart and soul, and he's also the heart and soul of Revolution Pro Wrestling. It's Mr. JJ Gale. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Thanks for having me on the show.
No, thank you for taking your time to come and talk to me. Just past, before we get on to how you got started and all of that stuff, this past weekend, you was at the 229 show. Fortunately, we wasn't there, but you was successful in what I heard was an absolute crazy match at the end of the show. We had Oku super kicking RKJ, I believe. We had all sorts of stuff going on, but moving on, you've won that match, and obviously heading on to the Revolution Rumble at the end of March. I think it's Easter Sunday, I believe, and fingers crossed we will get to that show. But massively congratulations for that. But just before we move on to how you got there, plans for Revolution Pro this year. Is it going to be the year JJ Gale wins some gold in Rev Pro?
Hey, look, I certainly hope so. I mean, that's always going to be the goal, right? Wherever you are, win that gold, get to the top of the pile. Hey, look, it's very competitive there. There's a lot of super good talent there. Everyone deserves to be there. But for sure, the goal is to get some gold this year. You know, if I win that Revolution Rumble, which isn't going to be an easy task, but it's something I wholly intend to do, I get a shot at the British Heavyweight Champion. So could it be that? That Cruiserweight title was looking pretty good. It's just changed hands to Jordan Breaks. Me and Jordan have some unfinished business from last year. He's got one on me, but I feel like I'm a completely different professional wrestler than I was then. So it'd be good to get back on that one, you know, so we'll see.
Definitely. So we have a championship as well. So, you know, if it doesn't work out at Rev Pro, maybe we can get you down to Ignite at Boreham Wood at some point.
It'd be my pleasure. I'd happily beat whoever your champion is.
Chris, CJ Carter, you heard it. We may have to have a chat at the end of this show. But again, just before we start with your career, you wrestled on higher stakes as well. We was there. Will Ospreay's last show. How was that show in terms of being a wrestler on it? Because obviously it meant a lot to Will, and it obviously meant a lot to the people in attendance. Was there any extra sort of pressure or motivation because of that whole event was obviously based around Will's last show? Was there any sort of extra pressure or motivation for you guys to go out and kill it even more than what you normally do?
Not really, in the sense that, you know, for me, I treat every match the same. I want to go out there. I want to be the best match on the card. I want to give the best of me in that for the fans in attendance and for myself to prove every time I go out there, just to show the world who I am and why I deserve to be where I am and why I deserve to go where I want to go. So for me, it doesn't matter the show. Sure, these bigger shows, there's a little bit more of that sort of palpable energy in the air. You know, it's 2,000 plus there. That's not every British independent wrestling show. So there's an extra bit of energy and excitement there for sure. With it being Will's last match, of course, we all want to put on a hell of a show for him. And it also means there's probably going to be a lot of eyeballs on it. You know, Rev Pro's or Will Ospreay's last independent booking. You know, I'm sure a lot of people are going to want to get that last glimpse of him before he goes off and does the amazing stuff that he's going to do in America on TV. So sure, I guess you're aware of all of that. But for me, the perspective and the attitude towards it doesn't change.
No, well, you certainly delivered. I think that whole show from bell to bell was great. I'll be talking to Andy on Monday, funnily enough, on this show. So I'll be looking forward to having a conversation with him. Let's get into more about you now. So obviously, look, you don't just wake up one morning and say, hey, I'm going to become a professional wrestler. It's not something you can just simply do. But when did it all start for you in terms of wrestling, watching it on the TV, and who were your like heroes when you was watching it?
So always tell this whenever I do an interview because I've got a really specific memory of when I first started watching wrestling. It's a bit of a weird one. So I'm flicking the channels with my brother. I'm probably about 6-7 years old. So some holidays or something. I couldn't tell you when it was, but we're flicking the channels and I don't fancy watching this. We'll watch this. We're going on to the sports channel and I've never heard, seen or know anything about pro wrestling, WWE or anything. Nothing I was aware of. And then we flick on this show and there's this dude with red and black face paint on with worms falling out of his mouth, chasing some other dude around this like ring. And I'm like, well, what the hell is this? I'm like a 7-year-old who just sees the bright lights, the colors and just the wackiness of it. And I'm like, this this is awesome. My brother changes the channel. I'm like, no, get off the cricket, get back on that. What was that? He's trying to be all sensible. Oh no, you're too young for that. I know what it is. You're too young to watch that. And I demanded he put it back on. Saw it was this WWE, and then from then on, it was just every time I got my hands on the remote to watch some TV, it was always go on Sky Sports and see if there was any wrestling on, and it just became more and more of an obsession there. I think like a lot of us that are still in wrestling to this day, like, you know, I think a lot of kids or young people get into it, and then, you know, maybe you realize it's not all it was, you know, made out to be, and or maybe you think, you know, it's not cool anymore and you move on to other things. But for me, the more I watch, the more I was intrigued in not only the characters, the stories, the in-ring work, but like this world behind the scenes of how does this all get put together. And it just became more and more of an obsession for me. I was always a backyarder, on my trampoline with my brother, with my friends, whatever it was at school, you know. But in terms of who I enjoyed watching, I mean, my first hero was John Cena. How could it not be at that time? You know, I'm talking, I started watching 2006. I probably first started watching pro wrestling, and, you know, he was just starting his time on the top, and to a young kid, you know, he's the coolest guy out there. He's winning all the matches. He's got the cool spinner belt. You know, it's everything you love. Rey Mysterio is someone who, from then to this day, is someone I appreciate and respect so much, because I just think he's an absolute revolutionary in terms of pro wrestling. You know, he's been doing it since he was 16 years old, which was the age I was when I had my first match. And he's still going now in his 50s, and he's still like incredible in the stuff he can do athletically. And he's worked everywhere, and he's just such a respected, incredible performer that's managed to last the test of time. So that was a guy I was always really into. You know, characters as well I was into. You're looking at guys like Edge, Chris Jericho were big characters that I was kind of drawn to. Quite often drawn to the bad guys as I went on a bit. You know, there's something about those heels that excite you a little bit. So I'd say early on, from the first few years, there were kind of some names that stand out, and that was kind of how I got into pro wrestling.
Amazing. I can give you one when I got into it, and this will probably be showing my age. Jake the Snake locked the Ultimate Warrior in like a cave underneath, or I don't know, it was a cave, but it was like a room. And the Undertaker, very young Undertaker, was the Undertaker that wears the grey gloves and the grey hat, was there. There you go. That gives you an idea of my age.
I love that though. It's always these wacky things though, right? You see it, and it's just like, what is this? I need to know more, and you're hooked.
A bit like yourself, I was always wondered how it got put on. I mean, I trained for about a month, and I realized pretty quickly and pretty painfully that it wasn't, you know, really for me. Didn't have the athleticism to do what you guys do. And when you started training, was there anything that you thought, geez, I didn't expect it to be, maybe it may have been the pain or something like that, but was there things that you didn't expect?
I'm sure there was. You know, I think I was so excited when I first went into a training school. It was something that I'd thought about doing for ages, and I'd imitated doing. Like I say, me and my brother put on a backyard wrestling show about 15 years ago. I was only about 11 years old or something, and we'd choreographed this whole show of 3 different matches with different gimmicks and costumes. I grew up in a really rural village in West Dorset, and we put out posters in the village notice board, and we had about 20 or 30 of just the villagers come over to our back garden to watch us put on this show. My dad had like got these little fireworks that went off, and we had, you know, the WWE theme tunes and stuff. So like, but we spent a whole summer creating this, and then going out there to perform it. And like, I did that, and I was like, this is the sickest thing ever. I need to do it. And I think if I wasn't already wanting to do it, which I was at that age, I think just even having that experience of performing whatever the hell it was we did at that point, I was like, I need to do this. So yeah, I think once I finally got into a ring and took that first bump, it hurt, but I think I was so excited to be there. I didn't really care. Like hitting the ropes, everything hurts more than you imagine. You see it on TV and you assume it's like a trampoline or it's like a mattress, or you hit the ropes and it's just these nice springy things. Everything in pro wrestling hurts. You know, people get hit every time and it hurts. You know, it's the classic thing someone will ask you is, oh, how'd you do it then? Because you just stamp your feet and you don't hurt each other, right? And it's like, well, you don't really know. You know, there's an art to what we do. And the bits that were painful and the parts of the business that maybe did surprise me, I think I was just so excited to be in and involved that I really didn't care.
Now, interesting. One of my stories, me and my friend, they always say, don't try this at home. And so me and my friend decided to do it at work. We used to work for a frozen food company, not going to name who that was. We used to go into the freezer to be. I remember putting my friend in the walls of Jericho in this -28 freezer. Having him. So we basically created the first ever freezer match.
There you go. There it is.
We're trendsetters back then. We're just going to ask you a couple of quick rapid fire questions. Or we always do this. Sometimes it stumps the guys. It takes them a bit longer to answer some questions, but always a bit of fun. If you could debut in any pay-per-view, what would it be?
Yeah. Instinct, you want to say something like WrestleMania or Wrestle Kingdom, but that's a heck of a lot of pressure. So if you're debuting, I'm going to go with it, but that's putting the pressure on me, right?
Definitely putting some pressure on you with that for sure. You may already know, you've already said who your favorites were, but have you got a favorite wrestling theme song? It could change a lot. Mine change daily, but
There's some crackers out there, eh?
yeah.
Can I cheat and say mine at the moment? Burned by Quintana. Heck of a theme.
I do you know I like RKJ's.
Yeah, it's a good one as well.
That's a really good song for sure. What is your favorite pay-per-view? Not the one you debut, but a favorite one.
As in, like an event I remember watching, or just
to watch? As in, if the pay-per-view was coming on the telly, what one do you always say that one's the one I'm watching, regardless of, you know?
Sure, I think stuff like WrestleMania and Royal Rumble are like two that you've watched since you're a kid, or they've always been hyped up to be the big ones. So they're always exciting ones to watch. You're going to get the biggest matches that company can produce. And the Royal Rumble, there's that excitement of who's coming out, who's going to win. And then obviously Wrestle Kingdom every year is always a top tier pay-per-view. So I'd say those three.
Those three, no, good choices. If you could choose 3 people in the wrestling business, a wrestler, a personality, and someone maybe like a producer, any 3 that you could sit around and say have dinner with and talk and learn about the business, who would they be and why?
Okay, so Ric Flair, just because that's going to be a great night. He's going to shoot the shit about the business. He's going to have some amazing stories, and we're going to have a hell of a night.
You might not remember it, though.
Yeah, right, exactly. But that's part of the fun. So definitely Rick. It's controversial to say Vince McMahon at the moment with everything that's happened.
You can,
but I feel like, and I probably don't want to be sitting around a dinner table with him now, but I'm thinking of someone like him who's been around since the very beginning of this era of wrestling. Maybe a Paul Heyman, actually. I'll go for that. I'm just trying to think off the top of my head, someone who's been in so many eras and so many places. And maybe Paul's better because he's been in this WWE setup. He's done the sort of grungy ECW and he's worked with so many top guys. So to pick his brain would be incredible. So the other one would probably have to be, I think I mentioned him earlier, Rey Mysterio. I just think, once again, he's got a heck of a legacy and I respect his work so much. So who's that? Paul Heyman, Rey Mysterio, and Ric Flair.
Ric Flair. 3, well, no, they're 3 great choices, that's for sure. If you say Rev Pro, say Andy called you and he said, JJ, we're going to put you in a triple threat match at the next show. You can choose a wrestler from Japan and a wrestler from America. Doesn't matter who. He's got just say he's got an unlimited budget. Just go along with it. Who's the Japanese wrestler going to be, and who is the wrestler in America going to win?
Someone who's wrestling in Japan now, or is just a Japanese wrestler?
Just a Japanese wrestler. Doesn't have to be wrestling. It could be anybody.
It's I feel like Okada's the gold standard at the moment, right?
Yeah.
I know he's just left Japan, but I feel like the amount of classics he's had. But that's just the first one that comes to mind. I feel like it's an easy option. I'm going to kick myself when I'm thinking of others. I mean, Hayabusa's not with us anymore, but that's someone as well. Would be pretty sick. So I know I'm cheating there, but there's a couple. American wrestler, Rey Mysterio. I keep saying it, but honestly, he's one of my favorites, and I'd love to work with him. So there you
go. Andy, we'll chat Monday.
Pay up.
have a word. But it's interesting because at the last Rev Pro show, they had a lot of AEW. I mean, Tony Khan from AEW, and that was there. And again, I'll go back to this whole pressure thing, but knowing that he was there there any sort of, this is, I know that he's looking at Ospreay and potentially Oku. We don't know that, but that was the 2 in the ring that he was that a sort of an opportunity saying his eyes are also there and, to get a bit of a nod from him?
Yeah, I think so. Actually, now you mentioned that, I'd kind of forgotten that was the case. I didn't know going in advance. I don't think most of the people that went to the show knew in advance that he was going to be there. I got there pretty early because I went up with a lot of the guys that were crewing the show.
I think I saw
And
you actually.
oh, really? Cool. Did we say hello? I apologize.
No. To be fair, I don't think I even said hello to.
Okay.
I think it was one of the ones where I glanced. And I was like, I'm sure that's JJ Gale.
Yes, that would make sense. But yeah, I was there early and I saw Gideon Gray, and he was suited and booted, which is unlike him. You know, usually he just rocks up in whatever the hell he fancied wearing. I was like, you know, Gideon, you're looking pretty fresh today. And he was like, well, I've got to, you know, Andy's told me to, you know, scrub up. Tony Khan's going to be here. And I was like, I wish he hadn't told me that. Don't tell me that. This is a man that could give me a dream job one day. I don't need to know that. But to be honest, I think if anything, you know, it was one of those things. Cool. That is pretty cool that he's here and he's watching, and you know, he could potentially see my match, and you know, it's a chance to just, you know, just remember that name, or that was something, you know, just make an impression on someone that you really want to make an impression in. But apart from that, I just forgot about it and just didn't think about it, because why put yourself under more pressure? You know, at the end of the day, we know what we're doing. We're just going to go out there. We're going to do what we do. We're going to work. We're going to do our job. And if we smash it out of the park, we smash it out of the park. And there's no need to worry about these external factors. Just focus on doing the job, which is what we did. And I'd like to think we did have a really good showing for ourselves. You know, it was sick to have these people there, though. I mean, I walked back through the curtain and the first person there was Orange Cassidy, and he was sort of congratulating me and giving feedback, and, you know, very grateful for that. You know, that's someone that's on TV week in and week out, who's worked with some of the best in the world. And not only is he there doing this spot for us on the show, which is going to get more eyes on our product, but also he's watching the matches and he's taking the time to give us feedback and say, oh, I loved this, or have you thought about doing this? And, you know, spoke to myself and Luke for about, you know, 10, 15 minutes afterwards, just giving some feedback. And, you know, that's invaluable. He doesn't need to do that, but I greatly appreciate it. So to be in these situations with these top names around, it's only going to benefit us. So it's, real grateful for these opportunities.
It must be really one of those ones where you do have, if they're there, you kind of have to ask them to do that. You know, you've got to say to them, hey, look, would you mind? I know that he took the time. He didn't have to ask him. He was there. He was doing it. But you've got to lean on those guys when they're there, right? To be able to, as you say, improve yourself, but just to get in their mind. Because it can just be that one bit of advice that goes for you from here to, well, Will Ospreay, in a sense.
Yeah, you're right. You never know which piece of the puzzle is going to take you to that next level. And, you know, it's I think that's one of the things which is so addictive about pro wrestling. You're just constantly trying to evolve and get better. And once you think you've got one thing sorted, you're like, oh, but what about this thing? What if I do things like this? Or what if I do this? And you're constantly, like I say, just piecing together this puzzle to try and get this finished product, which is never going to be finished. It's never going to be perfect, but it's this constant pursuit for perfection, which I think is what I love about pro wrestling, among other things. It's just that constant journey.
Yeah, definitely. I have to ask this question. How hard does Luke Jacobs hit?
Hey, he's a heavy hitter. You know, he's one of the very best in the UK at the moment.
Yes.
I took a beating. I'd like to think I stood up for myself and gave him some back. But yeah, the dude's a hard hitter. I'll give him that.
He's certainly he's Northwest strong for a reason, I suspect. Let's start with this. Now, when you started wrestling and you got the opportunity for Rev Pro, obviously Rev Pro, one of the biggest wrestling companies in the UK, if arguably the biggest. When that first call got to you, that first email, talk to us about your thought process. How did you sort of process it? This is the opportunity that a lot of people don't get, and they work around everywhere and they don't get that one email, which then catapults you. What was your initial feeling when that come through?
Hey, look, full transparency. Rev Pro was a goal of mine, and I did everything I could to get on those shows. I wasn't emailed and asked, hey, JJ, can you come work a show for us? Okay. I was 2.5 years in of training, doing shows sporadically. My first few years, you know, I wasn't all in. I started, like I say, just before my 16th birthday. I had my first match just before my 16th birthday. First 2 or 3 years, I did about 3 or 4 matches a year. I'm training every other week, maybe twice a month, because I'm living down in Dorset. I'm training over in Gloucester, and I'm relying on my parents to drive me and support me with this. So the first few years were slow moving, but it gave me just something to, you know, go in the right direction. 2018, I decided, look, you know, I'm leaving college and full-time education. Now, what do I want to do in my life? I want to be a pro wrestler. Okay, how do I do that? I need to be one of the best in the UK. Where is the best place in the UK? That's Rev Pro. You know, I go to university in Southampton to kind of keep some people happy that I'm doing the proper thing, taking the more respected or the more normal path. But in my head, the reason I chose Southampton was because Portsmouth was up the road and I can train at the Portsmouth School of Wrestling. So I started at the very bottom, and it's part of the reason that I am the heart and soul of Revolution Pro, is because I am embedded in the very fabric of what makes Rev Pro Rev Pro. I started off at the very bottom, just turning up and paying money to train at the Portsmouth School of Wrestling. I stood out and I got my chance to be in the Contenders division. I stood out and I was the first one to graduate that Contenders division. Teamed with Callum Newman for a little while. Took a while to find our feet. We split at the start of last year, and I feel like that was the very start there. We went our separate ways. He's doing amazing things over in New Japan now, and I really like to think that I'm on my way to being one of the top, if not the top in the UK. And we've seen my progression there. So it was not a case of getting an email and being like, here's the opportunity. It was working and having a clear vision of where I want to go. But each time those opportunities got given to me, it was just, this is what you say you want to do. This is where you say you want to be. You've got to deliver. You've just got to stand up and deliver. And there's been a few of those opportunities, and I'd like to think I've delivered.
Yeah, definitely. So would you say that that's one piece of advice that you'd give people? There's some people out there that, I mean, I know a couple of wrestlers that are really, really, like, in terms of in ring, I'd put him in there against, some of the best in there, even your good self, but they're just not getting, they always say, oh, I'm just waiting for this opportunity. But is it a case of don't wait, just fucking grab it?
I think so. And I think for a while I was waiting. And then I think it got to a point where I was quite confident in my abilities. And I was like, if I want this, I just need to go out and get it and do whatever it takes. And it's not easy. It's not easy to get these spots. But I think you've just got to exhaust every option. Just think about it. Which different ways can I go about it? Is it reaching out to promotions? Is it just putting the work in and training hard? Is it having the best match on every show so people are taking notice online? Is it doing this promo or this little segment on social media that's going to get me some traction? I don't think you can complain unless you've done everything you can. And even then, have you done enough? Because if you have, then you should get those opportunities.
You certainly did. You took it, and you're now at the races. You're now where you need to be. But lastly, before we start wrapping up, JJ, obviously we mentioned at the start there was a goal for this year, 2024. But realistic 2024 for you, where do you see yourself? What do you see yourself doing? Obviously, other than winning titles, and is it about getting ready to take that next step?
Yeah, it's just constant progression and growth, and having these breakout moments. I feel like for me, this match with Luke a couple of weeks ago at High Stakes was the first match I've had which has put people on notice. I wrestled Zack Sabre Jr. in December, and I got a little bit of traction. But I think two homegrown UK talents going at it, getting a standing ovation from 2,000 plus in York Hall, getting the attention of Dave Meltzer, who's been kind enough to put it over. He's someone that's got a lot of weight that people are going to listen to. And I think there's a lot of fans that were in attendance there that maybe didn't know who I was going into that match. And I went out there and I did my job and I showed them who I am, and now they take notice. So I think it's just keep having opportunities and keep having moments like that to keep growing my following, and just keep working every day, working on all aspects of my game to just keep trying to get better and better. I truly believe I can be the very best. And I think you've just got to keep working and stay humble and just keep going for it.
Definitely so. Well, we obviously wish you the best of luck in that. We will definitely see you in a few weeks at the Revolution Rumble. But before we see you again, can you tell everyone, look, where can they find you on socials? How can promote if promoters want to reach out to you? Where can they do that? If you've got any merch, and where are you appearing next?
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate it. So I'm across all sorts of social media at JJGale_PW. And that is Facebook, Twitter, or X, Instagram, TikTok, everywhere where you can catch up to date with stuff. YouTube as well. I've got a channel there with some of my work. Anyone wants to get in touch about any booking inquiries, it's jjgalebookings@gmail.com. But all this information is all going to be in the bios of any of those accounts. There'll be links to merch there as well, jjgale.bigcartel.com. Got this lovely new t-shirt I'm going to show off there. Available now. Only a few left. Only came out just under a month ago, but they're flying off, so only a few left there. A few other bits and bobs, prints and whatever else. So that's the best way to stay in touch. Coming up next, Rev Pro Coventry next weekend is the next one, and it's a real running of shows for Rev Pro. We got St Neots on the 24th, and then the Revolution Rumble, Southampton, and a load more dates and promotions coming up. Just stick on the socials to find out where.
They're going to social find out where revolution.pro/shows for those of you that want to get tickets for, as you say, St. Neots. They've obviously got the Coventry show this on the 17th of March. They've got St. Neots on the 24th, the Revolution Rumble on the 31st. They're back in Southampton on April 1st, and then live in London on the 7th. And then they go off to Spain on the 13th, live in Barcelona. And I'm going to finish there. Well, we're going to finish with the Stevenage Epic Encounter show on April 20th, because they do have a lot more list of shows. I don't know if the season tickets are still available, but you can go on revolution.pro/shows. And Andy, I'd like some commission, please, for that, if anyone does buy any shows. Before we go, I've got to run down a list, JJ. I'll try not to keep you too long while I do this, but I do have to first off mention our sponsors: Adonis Payne, Artemis, Aluna Blue, LA Taylor, and Taylor James. That is all of them. Yes, that is. We look forward to seeing you all, guys, very soon. April 21st is the next time our turnbuckle champion Smashing Mike will be in action. He will take on the brilliant James Ellis at Ignite Wrestling Pro Full Throttle. Go to Eventbrite/Ignite Full Throttle. You can get your tickets there. Front row is sold. They're about 55 to 60% gone. Aluna is also the Hit in the Turnbuckle Women's Champion. She'll be defending against Kira Kamira on April the 12th over at Apex Wrestling. And then finally, the Full Throttle show from Ignite is alluding to the show that the show that we sponsor, Ignite, which is Buckle Up on July the 14th. Some names, JJ, that you know will be there. I can't tell you them right now, but I may talk to you after this interview quickly and give you a list of a few. Just lastly, in terms of the interviews we've got coming up, one of your running buddies at Revolution Pro Wrestling, David Francisco, will be coming up, as will Andy, the promoter of Rev Pro. He will be coming up as well. On Monday evening, we open up the book of Mr. Anderson, and he will be coming on Monday. We'll be having a chat, all things WWE, TNA, Aces and Eights, arseholes, and whatever else that he wants to talk about on Monday. Next Wednesday, the 13th, is a big one for us. We'll be talking to the world's most dangerous man, UFC, WWE Intercontinental Champion Ken Shamrock. Will be dropping by on the show. The following week, take a breath quickly. We will be talking to one half of the most decorated tag team wrestlers in the business. We'll be asking him to get the tables. We will hope he set up a laptop and sit on a chair with the table, and we'll talk to Devon Dudley. And then the last week at the end of March, we'll be talking to a guy that is going at the moment. He's actually, funny enough, over in Japan, and that'll be British independent wrestler Kelly Six. Will wrap up March for us. I'm going to just take a breath quickly. JJ, it's been fantastic talking to you. Thank you so much for taking up your time this evening to have a chat with us. Good luck at Rev Pro in a couple of weeks in Coventry. I will see you in a few Sundays' time at the Revolution Rumble. If I do see you this time, I will say hello.
Go for it. I look forward to seeing you, man. Thanks a lot for having me on the show.
Thanks, JJ. Guys, keep a lookout on our socials at HTT Buckle, Hitting the Turnbuckle podcast, and all other social media outlets. He has been the heart and soul of the HTT Buckle podcast this evening, JJ Gale. I have been your host, Adam Cousins. And until next time, everybody, buckle down, stay safe, good night.